Today we're painting our crystal drawings. We will be using watercolors and we will be creating value with our watercolors. So to start, I need to get my brush very wet, and whatever color I choose to work with, I'm going to swirl, and I'm going to swirl for a while. I want to try and not get it super wet. I don't want a big puddle. I just want to get enough paint on there to where I can paint. If I don't use a lot of water, my paint is darker. I want to start with my darkest value towards the bottom of my crystal. So I'm going to keep coming back to the paint. I'm not going to add a whole lot of water. When we watercolor, our water is like white. The more water we add, the lighter the color gets. So I'm going to try and keep my color at the very bottom of my crystal as dark as I can. I only want enough water in there to make it paintable. So notice how I'm taking my brush strokes up. I'm going to go in the direction that my crystal is growing. As I fill up the bottom, I'm going to start adding water, and I'm going to keep flicking my paintbrush up towards the top of the crystal. As I add more water, my paint is going to get lighter. So towards the bottom of my crystal, I will have a dark value, and as I get towards the top, it will get lighter. This will give it the effect that it is translucent or see-through like crystals or gems actually are. I also have the choice to do a second color. If I'm going to do a second color, it needs to be a color that is next to the color I've already chosen on the color wheel. So I'm going to choose green, and I'm going to very lightly mix a little bit of green into my blue. I'm always going to kind of paint in the direction that my crystal is going. So these particular crystals are growing up towards the sky, so I'm going up and down. I'm not going to paint side to side. All right. Can also add to the top of my crystal. I'm going to keep going with green here, kind of mix those colors together. So one of the cool things about watercolors is when you make a mistake, you can squeeze out your brush like this and come back in there, and your brush will act like a sponge and it will pick up the leftover paint. So if I get a color where I don't want it, if I squeeze the water out of my brush, I can sponge it up with my dry brush. I decided I didn't want that much green, so I'm going to try and mix a little blue back in there. Okay. The key with watercolors is to go slow and take your time. Essentially, you're pushing a puddle of water around to paint, and a puddle of water is hard to control. So you really have to focus on what you're doing. I'm going to follow this same process for all of my crystals, starting with dark at the bottom and adding more and more water as I get towards the top.